To tonight's Hall of Fame dinner here in Goshen at Harness Racing Museum and Hall of Fame. Gentlemen, you may take off your jackets if you so desire, and to be an equal individual. Ladies, you can take off whatever you want to take off. This time, at this time, Larry DeVan.
Yeah, hi, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to have all of you here with us for this beautiful day in lovely downtown Goshen for Hall of Fame weekend. As is customary, I'd like to take a minute to have a moment of silence for those Hall of Famers and friends of the museum who have passed away since the last time we gathered here in 2017, including Anthony Abatiello, former trustee and Hall of Famer, Howard Beisinger, Hall of Famer, William Mulligan, trustee, and Great Horses, Country K. Sue, Flatfoot Floozy, Grand Lady in some beach somewhere. A moment of silence, please. Thank you. At this point, it's my pleasure to welcome Sean Wiles, from President of USHWA, to say a few words. John, glad to have you here.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another hot Goshen evening. The list of tonight's honorees is a very impressive one, extensive in both equine and people, and I think it's going to be a very good night, and I look forward to seeing everybody up here shortly. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to the night when we honor our sport's best and brightest. First, however, we give thanks for the gift of the people and the horses that we honor tonight. We ask for guidance in being the best we can be and to do right by our fellow competitors and the horses who do our will. God bless the men and women who serve in our country. This evening, Post Time with Mike and Mike, presented by Bet America and the USTA, is broadcasting a special edition of the show live via the Post Time website. The live podcast of the show can also be heard by clicking on the Post Time/Hall of Fame banner on the USTA website homepage. This year, it's going to be a long evening, but we're going to be serving dinner family style. The waitstaff will be available to provide additional servings, so please feel free to ask for more. To make the evening even more seamless and transparent as possible, we ask that all photos be taken at the podium. Group shots can be taken in the Houghton Hall after the awards. Your cooperation would be appreciated. Scanning the crowd, I see that we have some notable guests tonight. Senator Bill Larkin was here earlier, but because of the hot temperatures, he just couldn't take it and he left it. But Senator Larkin has always been very instrumental and important to the Hall of Fame and to horsemen here in the state of New York. So I want to still recognizing Senator Larkin, who had to leave early. USTA Executive Vice President Mike Tanner. Where's Mike? We also extend a warm welcome to the Goshen Historic Track officials who gave us a wonderful afternoon of racing today. And if they would all stand up, please, at this time. Goshen Historic Track officials. Museum trustees, would you please stand at this time and be recognized? All the trustees of the Harness Racing Museum and Hall of Fame. One of the most important people, our legal counsel, George Gasale. Get George. Hall of Fame Day is like an alumni reunion, welcoming back several members of the Hall of Fame. Dr. Glenn Brown, John Campbell, Ebby Gary, Wally Hennessy, Charlie Keller, Bob Quigley, Jim Simpson, Jimmy Takter, Ron Waples, and last but certainly not least, the winner of the Hall of Fame trot this afternoon, Dick Stillings. The oldest shall lead the younger ones, we're told. And Dick Stillings, by the way, was the oldest member, 74, and still driving on a weekly basis at the Meadows. And it did my heart good to see him come up here, and he comes up here every year, and it was great seeing him win. I should mention that Ron Waples, though, is just 4 months behind Dick Stillings. So, Ron, thank you for coming as well. Members of the Communicators Hall of Fame attending tonight, Murray Brown. Murray, now you made a big thing on Facebook today about taking your jacket off, and you're sitting back there with that jacket on. So does that mean that everything you put on Facebook is a lie or fake news? Jerry Connors. Moria Fanning. Hollywood Hayden. John Manzi. Gordon Waterstone. And Leon Zimmerman. The raffle will be drawn shortly, so buy your tickets while there's still time. Proceeds help support the museum's efforts to keep the sport's spatial memories, its paintings, lithographs, and vehicles, jackets, and caps in perfect condition. The winners will be posted in the Houghton Hall at the end of the dinner tonight. For those of you who might like to do some very early holiday shopping tonight, please stop by the Winner's Circle gift shop. Also a reminder that the Hambletonian Party and Casino and Poker Night at the Meadowlands Racetrack and Entertainment in East Rutherford, New Jersey, will be on Friday, August the 3rd. This popular event benefits the museum and the Standardbred Retirement Foundation. Tickets include an open bar, dinner, dessert, music, casino chips to play table games. For more information, please speak to John Mayo. There are sponsorship opportunities available, so please see the casino pamphlets at your table. Once again, we'd like to call to the podium Larry DeVan to recognize the 2017 Harness Horse of the Year, Hannelore Hanover.
Yeah, hi, hello again. This is really a pleasure. Hannelore Hanover was bred by Hanover Shoe Farms. Trotting mare foaled in April of 2012 at Hanover. Owned by Burke Racing Stable, Weaver Buscemi, Baldacchino, and J.T. Silva Stables. Hannelore was trained by Ron Burke and driven throughout her career by Yannick Gingras. As a 5-year-old in 2017, Hannelore had 10 wins out of 17 starts. Those included the Breeders' Crown, the Maple Leaf Trot, the Armbro Flight, the TVG Series Final, and the Ulrich Farm Stake. She finished the season with $1,049,000 in earnings and produced the fastest mile in history by a female trotter and defeated male rivals, beating the boys, as we call it, in both the Breeders' Crown and the Maple Leaf Trot. She's the first trotting mare to be named Dan Patch Horse of the Year since the renowned Moneymaker. Hannelore was voted 2017 Dan Patch Horse of the Year, the O'Brien Horse of the Year, Dan Patch Trotter of the Year, and Dan Patch and O'Brien Older Trotting Mare of the Year. Very distinguished career. I'm pleased to introduce Jerry Silva and present him with the museum's Delvin and Mary Lib Miller Horse of the Year Perpetual Trophy. And I'd like to welcome Jim Simpson to the stand representing Hanover Shoe Farms, the breeder of Hannelore Hanover. And he'll be accepting the Breeders' Award. Young fella. Jerry, congratulations.
Thank you.
Distinguished horse.
Thank you.
Jim, congratulations. Awesome accomplishment, awesome mare.
Thank you.
That's for you. That's for you, right? Did I get them right? Breeder and...
I'll say a couple of words.
Either of you?
Yeah, you want to say a couple of words?
Happy to have either or both of you say something.
No problem. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. Congratulations again.
The award plaque that I just received is for the Delvin and Mary Lib Miller Perpetual Trophy Owners Award Horse of the Year in 17, Hannelore. Hannelore was an inexpensive yearling in the $30,000 range, not in the 100, 150, 200,000, 250,000. They don't know the price. They perform if they want to perform, and they don't perform if they don't want to perform. She wants to perform, and luckily for us, we've been able to take her to where she is competitive amongst the girls and amongst the boys. She's continued to race this year. I think she's won 4 or 5 in a row over there. We have thoughts of bringing her over to the elite lot, but decided to keep her in the United States so we all could enjoy her here in all the races here instead of taking the trip overseas. So everyone's in the business. I was just talking to Mike Claw over at South Wind where we have Muscle Hill, and we said everybody's in the business to have a great horse. And Hannelore is a great horse. You look at her, she looks like the other 120 horses that we all own that don't perform, but that's life. So I accept the award for the Hannelore owners, Ron Burke, the trainer that made her what she is. Where's Jim? Hello.
I know you think you're having fun tonight, but you haven't really had fun in your life until you participated in the Billings Amateur Series. Here now to tell us about the best of that bunch from last year is Museum's 2015 Amateur Driving Champion and Museum Trustee, Steve Oldford.
Thank you, Roger. And if you saw the amateur races yesterday, you would see how much fun it really is. I'll tell you what, both races were neck and neck, right down to the wire. Roger actually had to poll the audience in the stands to determine the winner. But winners there were, and we had a lot of fun doing it. I was lucky enough to be one of them. And speaking of winners, the person that I have the honor to introduce put huge amounts of effort in 2015, 16, and 17 into amateur racing. Her devotion was unprecedented, and her record speaks for it. 3 consistent years with a UDR over 400. In 2016, she represented the United States in the National Amateur Racing Championship in Budapest, coming in second with a breathtaking finish right down to the last race. It was truly remarkable. She's been the Billings Point Championship winner for a number of years, winning the Gold Cup in 2016. Having traveled internationally with her, she's a role model for the youth movement as the young people flocked to her, and we saw it in Italy looking for signatures, and as the rest of us stood by and watched. Very, very entertaining. Hannah is currently works for Kinetic Vet Services as an equine specialist. I am very pleased to introduce Hannah Miller as the 2018 Museum recipient of Amateur Driver of the Year.
Do you have a trophy? Oh, there we go.
Oh, my dog.
Oh, that's your dog.
My dog.
Oh, that's so
Thank you.
sweet.
Thank you.
Get this. Here we go. Get on the other side. Get on the other side over, and I'll stand over here with this. No, no.
Oh.
Steve on that side.
There we go.
We're going to put the rose between the thorns. All right.
Okay.
All right.
Quickly, I just want to say thank you to my family and everyone that has supported me. I have so much fun driving. It has been a blast. I have moved over to the animal health side of everything, but I will be back on the track shortly, and I really look forward to it. I want to say congratulations to all tonight's honorees, and thank you for everything.
Before I continue on, I got to tell a little story. I don't know if anybody can remember a movie that, I'm not sure whether it was a USTA or HTA, but it was Stan Bergstein. We made a movie at Pompano Park that was called This is Harness Racing. And everybody showed this movie at clubs and organizations and everything for a number of years. But there was a video of a qualifying race showing a much taller Delvin Miller, or at least his colors. But to my knowledge, it was the first drive in the United States by Hakan Wallner at Pompano Park, a qualifier wearing Delvin Miller's colors in the movie This is Harness Racing. I could tell you some other stories about Hakan Wallner, but see me after the dinner. One time I had to say at Delaware, Jan, you might even remember this, I don't know. He was sitting third and locked in, was not going to get out. I says, and for the second time in 24 hours, Hakan Wallner's locked in jail and can't get out. He came home from the horse sale and got arrested by the county sheriff's department. He was one hell of a guy. Gone but never forgotten. That's the legacy of our immortal members of the Hall of Fame. Their contributions to the sport are significant and will always be remembered. And being inducted as an immortal this year is Hakan Wallner. Sean Wiles, standing in for Joe Mendelson, chairman of the Immortals Committee of the Hall of Fame this evening, will introduce us to the family members and representatives of Hakan Wallner.
Good evening, all. Hakan Wallner, entrepreneur, pioneer, innovator, visionary. These are a few of the words that describe Hakan Wallner. It was not uncommon to find the charismatic and globe-trotting Wallner traversing the Atlantic Ocean and the Concorde to keep up with his hectic pace. In 1978, he made 19 transatlantic trips on the Concorde. He was the Swedish version of James Bond. It was through his vision and efforts that he raised Sweden's bar of racing and breeding to an international level, and he is regarded as Sweden's greatest trotting ambassador. With his keen foresight, he paved the way and slammed open the door for European and Scandinavian horse trading, importing numerous stallions and broodmares to Sweden, Italy, France, Denmark, and Finland, forever altering the breeding with the influx of the fresh American bloodlines throughout the European trotting landscape. Hakan was fortunate enough to have crossed paths early in his years and forged a lifelong relationship with one of Sweden's top drivers, Bernt Lindstedt. Bernt joined the Wallner stable when he was 30 and was Continental Farms' primary driver on both sides of the ocean. Hakan ventured out on his own and opened his own stable in 1963. It was also during this time that Hakan started to purchase American-bred trotters to export to Sweden. He quickly found success with Dart Hanover, winner of the 1972 Elite Lop and 1973 Prix de Marique. And then came the dashing son of Neville Pride, Pershing, winner of the 1979 Elite Lop and multiple other European Grand Circuit events. This success vaulted Wallner and Lindstedt to the pinnacle of European trotting fame, but Hakan saw a new horizon, and he set his sights on America. Hakan made another addition along the way to his stable, a young reserve Swede by the name of Jan Johnson. Long before multitasking was a word, Jan had already mastered it and was honing his craft by supervising the horde of day-to-day logistics and operations of Continental Farms. Continental Farms USA was started by Hakan Wallner, Bernt Lindstedt, and Jan Johnson in 1975 with 7 horses and owners Jürgen Yare Jr., K.G. Bertmark, and Ulf Moberg, while at the same time maintaining a stable in Sweden. Hakan quickly earned the respect of his American colleagues, and it wasn't long before the familiar blue, red, and white, blue, black, and white colors of Continental Farms quickly started showing up in the winter circles across America in greater frequency. Before too long, he was training 40 to 60 horses, and this peaked to over 120 horses in the mid-'80s. In his career, Hakan had won just about every prestigious race in America and Europe: the Hambletonian, the Prix de Marique, the Elite Lop, and the International Trot. The list of stake races that he has been responsible for is too numerous to recant. His horses amassed numerous world records, divisional honors, and seasons record. A partial list of his top performers include Yankee Glide, Armbro Goal, Royal Prestige, Super Gill, his all-time favorite Winky's Gill, and Workaholic, and the list goes on. Hakan also paved the way for other Scandinavian horsemen to come to the United States and compete at the sport's highest level. This list includes Soren, Jan Nordin, Jimmy Takter, Per Eriksson, Per Hendrickson, Stefan Melander, and Pekka Korpi. Collectively, this group combined has 9 Hambletonian wins amongst them. Hakan was a superb motivator and could maximize the potential from his horses and his caretakers alike. Many of us grooms in the Continental Farm at the time were just kids, myself included. Much like the yearlings we were rubbing, we were green and immature in life, but we all shared the same common denominator: the profound mutual respect for Hakan. He did not talk to us. He did not talk down to us. He talked to us. He inspired us. He motivated us, and he appreciated our hard work that we put in. In the late 1980s, Hakan pursued another chapter in his career and moved to Italy, where he once again successfully reinvented himself. Hakan passed away on January 20th, 2001. He was inducted to the Swedish Hall of Fame in 2015. It gives me great pleasure to bring up Hakan's family and introduce him as the newest member of the Immortal Trotting Hall of Fame. Thank you.
Sean will be taking it over.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
It's time to hear from our newest Hall of Famers. To introduce the young lady that's going to be awarded here tonight, Russell Williams. Would you come forward, please, for the introduction?
On behalf of the 17,000 members of the United States Trotting Association, I extend congratulations to all of tonight's honorees. Margareta. Under många års tid har du byggt upp travsporten på 2 olika kontinenter. I'm going to be a couple of minutes here. Du har gjort menammerstuteri legendarisk inom travvärlden. I det arbetet har du visat klokskap och mod, innovationsförmåga och ett sinne för humor. Men du har också en speciell kraft som alla talar om som har träffat dig. Den kraften är vänlighet. Din vänlighet har lyst upp många människors liv, hästars liv och andra djurs liv. Vår sport är vänligare och ljusare tack vare dig. I denna Hall of Fame återfinns de människor som har lyckats uppnå det som alla strävar efter att nå. När du nu placeras i denna plats för storytär säger vi välkommen hem, Margareta. Over the years, you have built up the trotting sport on 2 continents. You've made Menhammar-Stuteri legendary in the trotting world. Doing this, you have shown wisdom and courage, innovation, and a sense of humor. But you have a special power. Everyone who meets you speaks of this. It is the power of kindness. Your kindness has brightened many people's lives, many horses' lives, and the other animals as well. Our sport is kinder and brighter thanks to you. In this Hall of Fame are the people who have achieved what we all hope to achieve. As you enter this place of greatness, we say, welcome home, Margareta.
John, there we go. Go ahead.
1, 2, 3. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're fine.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I'm so honored and very proud to be sitting here tonight as a fresh Hall of Famer. Thank you very, very much. All of us here have one thing in common. We love horses, and we regard it is a privilege to work with horses, either good or bad ones, and we love them. I think we can all agree to that. Horses and the interest for horses have a great impact on us. Hilarious and good days, and somewhat life-saving in bad days. I have experienced both. There is always something to look forward to for tomorrow, next week, next race, and so on. And there are two very, very useful words that is used by most of the horsemen. If not. If not, it's a very special saying for horsemen. Horses have been a great part of my life for more than 70 years. And what you don't know is that my special love for horses actually began when I was only 6 years old and we lived in the city. My mother had sent me to get some milk from a store next door, and when I stepped out of the door from our house, I heard a terrible noise, and I saw this poor, huge working horse being brutally beaten by a screaming driver, a very drunk and very angry man who could not get the horse going. Something happened inside of me, and I became a real Pippi Longstocking. I went up and grabbed the guy and showed him the horse and pointed out that the horse could not move as his legs were tied together. And it was some kind like that times handbrake. And I demanded him to stop immediately. Out of pure surprise, he stopped beating the horse, and he looked very ashamed. At that moment, I was so happy to have saved the horse, at least in that moment. And I felt something very strong starting to grow inside of me. You can't and you shouldn't beat a defenseless animal. No way. Well, 70 years ago, 1947, my father bought a farm outside on the countryside, and he started a breeding business. And I was only 10 then, and I was allowed to live with stallions, mares, baby foals, yearlings. And you know what that does to somebody. Since then, the farm has produced close to 3,000 babies. And the last one we got about 5 hours ago, number 83 this year, and that was a coat by Margareta and Giant Diablo. And I might tell you that he will be for sale. Over the years, I had so much fun with my horses, and I've had the pleasure of working with so many fantastic people and for fantastic organizations in the harness world, both on the breeding, on the racing, and the betting side. I've learned a lot, and I also hope I have contributed to all sides. Being the best breeder in Sweden with the most money-winning bred horses for the last 11 years in a row is nothing you can do by yourself. My heartfelt thank you to Johan. Where are you there? And you have to tell everybody working for us that I'm very happy for this. And there is something else that I'm also happy for. If I had not met the owners of Stoner Creek and the breeders of the Speedy Scott yearling filly Eagle Lassie that I bought 1947 at a yearling sale in Kentucky, my American connection would probably have looked quite different. To pay $12,500 for her was the best investment I ever did. A long-lasting friendship with the Johnson family and the Hall of Famer Norman Woodward introduced me to so many nice horse people, and I'm happy to see some of you here today. The friendly partnership Norman and I entered in 1978 with a handshake over a handwritten contract for the lease of Suit as a stallion and stud in Sweden lasted until 2003, when Norman passed away. For 20 years also, we both honored the handwritten contract with no discussions at all and with no lawyer-based bills to pay. During those years, we also enjoyed many stars being bred, both and raised at Stony Creek and Menhammar. Since many years, I'm now also the proud owner of a beautiful horse farm, Stony Creek in Kentucky, which I was allowed to buy for the same price as a construction company had offered. So I could save the farm from being demolished by bulldozers and caterpillars, and Norman was very happy. Since 20 years now, the farm is being leased by Cindy and Steve Stewart under the name of Hunterton Farm at Stony Creek. And the farm is very well taken care of, and they have done very well at the sale so far, and I wish them all the luck in the future. Being here tonight is the result of a fantastic combination of American and Swedish friends and horsemanship through the years. And I'm very proud and very thankful to all of you that voted for me. Thank you. I do hope I can fulfill what is expected from me as a Hall of Famer. And being the first woman with this title, I hope I can also be an inspiration to all girls and young women out there. Yes, we women can.
Margareta, I have the honor to present you with a pendant. It says the Harness Racing Hall of Fame, Margareta Wallenius-Kleberg. Congratulations.
Harness racing Harness Racing Museum has long enjoyed the support of the Monticello Goshen chapter of the United States Harness Riders Association, and this year is no exception. Representing United States Harness Riders Association President Sean Wiles to present a check for $5,000 from the national chapter of the United States Harness Riders Association. We look forward to many years honoring our Hall of Famers. Sean, you want to come up, please?
Thank you, Roger. On behalf of the National USHWA and its board of directors, it gives me great pleasure to be able to give this check of $5,000 to the Harness Racing Museum as a continuation of our ongoing sponsorship and fundraising, and we continue to look forward to doing it possibly more in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Sean, thank you so much. Thank you. Greatly appreciate it. I'm sorry?
Now we call to the podium John Manzi to present their very generous contribution to the museum. John Manzi, please. Chris Tully and Sean Wiles, you want to come back?
Over here.
Don't stop now.
Yeah, really, John, don't stop now.
Well, we're not going to stop now. We're still going to give away more money. The harness riders really appreciate that this area here, Goshen, is in our area, in our chapter area. And you just saw 5,000 come from our president, our chapter president, national president, too. Former chapter president, I might say. Or Sean's still the president? Are you still the president? Local? He's still our local president. I'm the local president. Oh, Mr. Tully's our local president. But anyway, it doesn't make a difference because we're donating more money. And we got, what, 4,000? 4,000 more. And every year, Monticello Goshen chapter has been given 3,000. But the efforts of Mr. Tully and his crew raised another 2,000 with their run. What was the run?
Iron Horse Poker.
Iron Horse Poker Run. When you donate to that, you know, it's coming back to us. So we appreciate it. Why they got me up front here, because, yeah, I'm yesterday's memories for the most part, but it's in good hands with Chris and Sean and Janet, of course, too. So we thank you for supplying funds for this wonderful donation.
Thank you both.
Too much wine.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks for the race.
Yeah, my pleasure.
We appreciate it.
Can I talk for a minute? I want to say thank you to USHWA National for their $5,000 financial support of the museum. It really means so much to have support from above. Thank you to John Manzi for beginning the tradition of Monticello Goshen chapter giving to both Historic Track and the Harness Racing Museum. To date, Monticello Goshen has donated more than $50,000 to the museum over the years. Thank you to Chris Tully and Sean Wiles for continuing the tradition and this year increasing the limit. I want to thank museum trustees for their support and guidance throughout the year, and museum staff for all their hard work in the last couple of months, and especially tonight.
This time, we'd like to call Hall of Famer John Campbell to the podium to introduce 2018 Living Hall of Fame inductee Jules Siegel.
Thank you. First of all, congratulations to all of the honorees and award winners tonight. We are quite a unique group that make up this harness racing community that we are all part of, and we're all so competitive each and every time a horse we are associated with goes on the track. Always competing against and trying to beat one another. And we come together here to celebrate and congratulate excellence from our top performers. And that is kind of a parallel to my relationship with Jules Siegel. In all my years of driving, no one fired me more than Jules. However, and certainly more important, we have always been and will always be friends. So I was very honored when he asked me to participate in his induction ceremony. When Jules and his wife Arlene purchased their first horses back in 1986, they bought a bunch of nondescript, cheap brood mares that didn't pan out. From there, they tried a claiming horse, after which Jules declared to Arlene, "We are either going to go first class or we are going to get out of this business." He would have no idea at the time what an impact that statement would have on their own lives and the racing and breeding industry. They would win our greatest race, the Hambletonian, as well as the Hambletonian Oaks, the Jugette, multiple Breeders' Crowns, and multiple Division Award winners, and many more of our highest level stakes, too numerous to mention. And the legacy continues. Last night in the Earl Beale, Jim and Jules had 3 horses that earned their way into the final, and they came out with a victory in a $500,000 shot, and with Crystal Fashion. Jules started and developed a world-class breeding operation and has stood 4 of his own stallions: Tagliabue, Broadway Hall, Real Artist, and Possess the Will. And the Fashion Farm's footprint and impact will be felt throughout harness racing for generations to come. Jules' statement to go first class would have an impact on 2 brothers from Ontario as well. The 1995 Hambletonian with Tagliabue was a very special day for both Jim and I and our families. And the night of that Hambletonian, my dad said it was the best day of his life, until my mother told him it wasn't. I have a saying about people who are involved in this business for long periods of time and survive all the highs and lows horse racing throws at you. I call these people warriors. And Jules, you are a warrior in the game of harness racing. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce and welcome to the Living Harness Racing Hall of Fame, Mr. Jules Siegel.
Thank you very much, John. It was hard for me to recognize myself after that. In any case, just at the beginning, I had the opportunity to play golf with the Standardbred Retirement Fund about 2 months ago, a month and a half, 2 months ago, and I played with the Campbells. And normally, when I'm down in Florida, I shoot about mid-90s every time. Somehow or another, playing with John, I had a complex and I couldn't hit a ball straight. I kept hitting the trees, I went into the woods, I couldn't even sink a 2-foot putt. And John, with his patience, said to me, "Don't worry, you'll get into it sooner or later." Well, actually, I didn't ever get into it that day. And at the end of the game, I felt so bad and ashamed that I walked up to John and I apologized for such lousy playing. He said, "No problem." Then he turns around, he looks at me and says, "Did you ever think of taking up bowling?" Anyhow, thank you very much for electing me to the Standardbred Hall of Fame. This honor is by far one of the most unbelievable experiences of my 90 years. When I received the call, I was ready to hang the phone up. Most of us here have received calls about being a recipient of treasure
from an unknown ancestor or from an electric company professing to save you hundreds of dollars. And I suddenly realized that this call was the real thing. After explaining the details involved in what would take place in the near future, the voting, etc., the caller then requested that I not speak to anybody about this since they were planning to publicize this on the next Monday. Of course, I agreed. Immediately after the call, you can guess what I did. Right. I called Jim Campbell to tell him the good news. I spent the weekend with my head in the clouds, and to be sure of what I had learned, I called Moira Fanning the next Monday, and she reassured me that it was all true. As I walked through my house every day, I passed by and glanced into the trophy room that has grown by leaps and bounds, and I marvel at the more than 100 trophies that I have accumulated over the past 30 years. I realize that so many individuals have contributed to my success, and I would be remiss if I did not take this opportunity to thank them. First, mostly, John Campbell was my go-to guy at the beginning, and I was amazed at his consistent ability to make good horses into great winners. His determination to drive Tagliabue to the first major win at the Hamiltonian in 1995, his patience with Broadway Hall, who went through a season of 9 consecutive stake wins in spite of the fact that he was hurting in every one of his races. The excitement he gave me with real artists, Arts Virtue, Armbro Animate, Possess the Will, Lots of Cloud, Full of Fun, fillies such as Galleria, Galley by the Beach, Fun and Strokes, Fashion Athena, Stage Show, and I know he will never forget Cooler Schooner, Crazy Cooler Schooner. She set a 151 and a piece record as a 2-year trotting filly. Time is not important, he used to tell me. Winning is everything. My words are never enough to thank him. Jim Campbell, my trainer and son of my extended family for almost 25 years, taught me how the horse business works, how to select horses to purchase at the sales. He used to say, let's start with 100 that you select to look at from the catalog, narrow it down to 50 on the second day, 25 on the third day, 10 or 12 on the sale day that are the best, and we'll get serious. Conformation, size, head, eyes, stiffness of tail, and so forth. After you buy them, he gave me lessons in how to make them into winners. We had a secret word that contributed to our great success. It is called communication. Over all these years, we have talked in person or on the telephone at least twice weekly about training, conditioning, treatment, and the prospects of each and every horse that he was training. As a side, when Tagliabue won the Hamiltonian, both Jim and I were standing at the fence right opposite the finish line. We both realized that Tag was going to win as he came down the stretch. But Jim was so excited, he grabbed me around the head and covered my eyes accidentally. I never saw Tag cross the finish line until I saw the replay. How in the world can I ever reward him enough for all he has done for me? Jim and I have paid attention to the careers of many of the up-and-coming drivers during their early years. When Tim Tetrick was breaking into the major ranks and was the hottest driver around, I told Jim that we have to get him to drive some of our horses. Eventually, we were fortunate enough to have him drive some, and he came through every time.
To this day, he is one of our top selections when he is available. He showed us his worth last night. I accompanied a friend of mine to the races at Pompano Park several years ago. I was impressed with this young driver who was just breaking into the ranks there, and I made my way to the paddock to meet him. For a short time we talked, and I suggested that they come north and that I had 12 horses he could drive at the Meadowlands. A few months later he did make it north, but he decided to stop at the Meadows on the way. After a few months, Brian Sears felt he was ready for the big time and did get to the Meadowlands, where I tried to get him to drive whenever possible. In later years, Brian moved to Yonkers, and since most of my stock was Pennsylvania bred, we seldom got together. However, came Hamiltonian Day. I noticed Brian was driving Muscle Hill. I convinced Jim to put him on Broadway's Schooner in the Oaks. After Muscle Hill won the Hambo, I convinced Brian that he had a chance to make history if he could win with Schooner. No driver had ever won the Hambo and the Oaks the same year, and sure enough, he came through. We have used many of the up-and-coming drivers over the years, and with Dave Miller available to drive our fillies in the Jugette, it was a perfect fit. The first year I had entered a filly in the Jugette, we chose Dave to drive Just Wait Kate. What a thrill it was to have a winner the first time you have a horse racing in such a prestigious race. It was a no-brainer the next year when we dropped Eternity's Delight in the same race, and we asked David to drive her. Sure enough, he made it 2 consecutive years that we had a winner. Later, Jim asked David to drive Broadway Donna in a qualifier. After the race, David made one remark: "Wherever that filly goes, I'm going with her." History has shown that he made the right move. She became Trotting Filly of the Year 2 years in a row with his handling her. Thank you very much, Mr. Page. I told you about that. And then there is one other fellow, Dave Elwell, my farm manager, my teacher and son in extended family. He and his able crew have taught me for over 25 years the right way to operate a horse farm, the proper way to raise horses, the important way to operate a farm, the way to drive and maintain farm equipment, the way to treat associates on the farm, foal newborn babies, medicate mares when they get sick, and most important, how to take care of those who have made my success possible. Dave hasn't given up teaching me about horses, farms, and the like, and I guess he never will. I would be remiss if I neglected the one person who is responsible for my standing here this evening, and that is my wife, Arlene, who made all of this possible, since she was the one who purchased the horse farm, the one who motivated me by stating after I sold my drug chain and came home, "Dear, I will not let you retire to nothing." I am sure she is up there someplace, looking down, smiling as she always did, and enjoy the evening. Thank you very much.
Which hand do you want that on?
Either one.
We'll go on that one.
Okay.
Put on that one. There you go. Put it on the pinky on the other side. There you go.
Okay.
But put it. Well, wait a minute. Give me your hand. Give me a hand. There you go.
Okay.
Good speech too, Jules. Very
Thank you.
good.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Jules.
What?
The box.
Thank you. I need the box.
Excuse me.
Now we move on to the Living Horse Hall of Fame.
Thanks, Roger. Thank you, Roger. Time for the Living Horse Hall of Fame broodmares. Let's start it off with Sweet Future. Sweet Future was bred by the Uptown Stable and was foaled on April 15th back in 1998 in Creamers, New Jersey, currently owned by Burnham Wood Farms. The progeny that qualified Sweet Future for the Hall of Fame are 2011 Dan Patch winning Pacing Colt of the Year and 2014 Dan Patch Pacer of the Year, Older Pacer of the Year, World Champion Sweet Lou, almost $3.5 million. He's got 6 consecutive sub-48 wins. That record still stands by Yankee Cruiser. And 2-time Breeders' Crown winning World Champion Better Sweet, almost $2.8 million by Better's Delight. To date, Sweet Future has produced 5 fillies and 7 colts, one of which missed a head last night for $500,000, Nutcracker Sweet, with 10 starters from 10 foals of racing age and total earnings over $7 million. Let's say hello to Seth Rosenfeld, representing Burnham Wood Farms, the owner of Sweet Future, to accept the award.
Thanks, Holly. This is a lot of fun. It's great to be introduced by Holly. I've known him for longer than we both care to admit, I'm sure. And he's so up to date, he even had last night's race results in there. Can't hear me? Oh, very good. This is a lot of fun. Sweet Future is a daughter of the first filly I ever bought at public auction in 1986, her damn sweet darling. And I'll keep this brief. It's a crazy story, but the way I ended up with her as a broodmare is we sold her for the grand sum of $6,000, and she wasn't paid for. And 5 months later, Dave Mears went and retrieved her to settle the bill. And that's how I ended up with her. So it just shows you, more than anything in this business, you really do need to get lucky. And I'm really happy. A lot of people who've been so important to her, Dave is here, and his daughter Julie, Chris Coyle and his wife Georgia, Mark Flaherty, and of course Joelle Arnold and Olivia. They played a big role in this too. Thank you all, and it's a great honor.
Okay. Nice going, buddy.
Good job.
Okay, now for our second broodmare. How about Gala Dream? Foaled April 6, 2001, Cream Ridge, New Jersey. Currently owned by Hanover Shoe Farms. The progeny that qualified Gala Dream for the Hall of Fame are 2013 Dan Patch, O'Brien 2-year-old Trot and Colt of the Year, and 2014 Dan Patch 3-year-old Trot and Colt of the Year, World Champion Father Patrick. 150 and 2, over $2.5 million. He's the son of Cantab Hall. And 2010 Dan Patch 2-year-old Trot and Colt of the Year, Pastor Stephen. 52 and 4 winner, over $1 million, also by Cantab Hall. To date, Gala Dream has produced 1 filly and 8 colts with 8 starters from 8 foals of racing age and earnings over $3.99 million. Let's say hello and bring up Jim Simpson, representing Hanover Shoe Farm, the owner of Gala Dream, to accept the award.
Hollywood, you left me with nothing left to say other than when George Siegel called us about the package that he had to offer for us, the broodmares, along with Gala Dream, I couldn't resist. We made a deal, and it's been great.
Okay, now time for the Living Horse Hall of Fame stallions. How about Cantab Hall? Bred by Walnut Hall Limited and he was the 4th consecutive #1 ranked experimental Hall horse on the list, following Banker Hall, Andover Hall, Broadway Hall, and Cantab Hall, and Berto Stable. Trotter Cantab Hall was foaled on January 20th back in 2001 in Lexington, Kentucky. He was purchased by Ron Gerfine, for a partnership that included Brittany Farms and Jerry Silva at the 2002 Tattersall's yearling sale for $310,000 a sales topper. Trained by Gerfine and driven by Michael Chance, Cantab Hall raced in 2003, where he became the only 2-year-old ever voted Trotter of the Year, 10 for 10, and 2004 earning over $1 million for a life. As a stallion, Cantab Hall was a leading trotting sire for 3 consecutive years, 2012 through 14, as well as the last 2016 and 17. He sired winners of over $75 million to date, with 8 millionaires, including Father Patrick, Wild Honey, Explosive Matter, Uncle Peter, and Pastor Stephen. As a broodmare sire, Cantab Hall sired the dams of the winners of over $16 million, with 2 millionaires, Hamiltonian runner-up Southwind Frank and Ariana G. Representing the Cantab Hall Syndicate, Jim Simpson will receive the award for Cantab Hall.
There's a saying in the racing business I've heard for many times: if they won't fight with you, they won't fight for you. Cantab Hall is a really tough guy. We can't keep him in a stall. We had to build a shed out in the field for him, and where he lives 24/7. If you put him in a stall, he'll tear it down or tear himself up. So he's tough, and that's a reason he's a great sire.
Western Ideal. Today is Sunday, and Tuesday night I talked to Michael Chance, now retired with 69,000 career drives plus. He told me in his entire career the most beautiful horse he ever drove was Western Ideal. Bred by Brittany Farm, world champion pacer, was foaled May 23rd, 1995 in Versailles, Kentucky, and raced in 97, 99, and 2000, missing his 3-year-old year. As a 5-year-old in 2000, trained by Brett Pelling, driven by Michael Chance, Western Ideal won the Breeders' Crown, the Houghton Memorial, Canadian Pacing Derby, and the Graduate. In his Breeders' Crown victory, Western Ideal set a world record 148 flat for a 5-year-old and older standardbred on the mile track. He was voted 2000 Dan Patch Older Pacer of the Year. As a stallion, Western Ideal has sired winners of over $124 million, with 12 millionaires to date. They include the 2005 Horse of the Year and Hall of Fame Immortal Rock and Roll Hanover, Vintage Master, Crispy Apple, Western Ace, Dial or No Dial, Art Speak, and Big Jim. Western Ideal has sired 3 sub-48 pacers. The first 3-year-old to do it, American Ideal, Art Speak, and Luck Be With You. As a broodmare sire, Western Ideal has sired the dams of winners of over $58 million to date, with 5 millionaires. McWicked, who won last night in the Franklin, O'Brien Horse of the Year State Treasurer, Fear the Dragon, See You at Peelers, and Solar Sister. Representing the Western Ideal Syndicate, Jim Simpson will receive the award here for Western Ideal.
George Siegel, Russell Williams, and myself syndicated Western Ideal somewhere in New Jersey, like Il Villaggio, and it took about 25 minutes. A handshake, and we had the deal done, and the horse is 23 now, and we haven't had any problems. George did ask me one day at Harrisburg, can we do such and such with Western Ideal? And I said, I don't know, what's the syndicate agreement say? And he said, I don't know, I've never read it. It's who you deal with, not what you have in writing. So we've had a great relationship, both with Cantab Hall and Western Ideal, Western, Hanover, and many others. I just can't thank him enough for all he's done for us.
Now time for the Communicators Hall of Fame. Ed Teefy, would you come forward, please, for the introduction? the 2018 Communicators Hall of Fame inductee, Carl Becker.
Thank you, Roger. Carl asked me to do this in Orlando, and I was obviously very honored to do it. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, I get 20 pages of highlights. So after talking to Janet and Chris, I've condensed it. So it wasn't my doing, Carl. I've been told to keep it a little brief. Before I get into my prepared remarks, though, at our table tonight, we've got Irv Miller, daughter Hannah, who was honored earlier tonight. But also with us is Irv's mother, Anna Mae, from Arthur, Illinois. So let's give her a big hand. I heard a story about Irv Miller that I can't pass up, and this wasn't in my prepared remarks, but Carl told me one time that Irv's dad, Marvin, worked for him at Fair Meadow Farms, helped him with the breeding operation. And Marvin, Irv's dad, always liked to train a couple of horses. So Carl would buy a horse or two at the Delaware, Ohio sale, bring them home. Marvin would do the work around the farm. In his spare time, he'd train a horse or two. So in the early 80s, Marvin Miller said, Carl, I'd like my boy to be able to train one of these horses. And Carl had bought a horse the week before at Delaware, Ohio for all of $750. And Carl's thinking, man, I got $750. I don't know Marvin Miller's son from Adam. Didn't even know his name. But he's thinking, this is going to be a waste of time. So comes around to county fair time. Marvin Miller goes to Carl Becker and says, hey, I need the eligibility papers on that horse. Carl's thinking, oh my, why? Well, Irv wants to start the horse at the Marshall Fair, the first on the Illinois circuit. Carl's thinking, wow, I announced there, this is going to be embarrassing. The horse drew the 7-hole. And lo and behold, the horse gets away 7th, pulls at the half, circles the whole field, comes the last half of a minute, and wins the race. So now, Irv Miller, Carl takes credit for your career. Nice to have you here. Carl Becker comes from a generation of harness horse people whose biggest days of the year were Christmas, Easter, maybe a wedding anniversary, and the day the sires and dams arrived in the mail. Not necessarily in that order. Carl graduated from the University of Illinois and was the top individual in his senior class of ag majors and won the top individual award in an international cattle judging competition while at the U of I. Soon after that, he parlayed his judging ability to pick the local pageant queen, Bonnie, as his wife. They have 3 very accomplished sons. John's a fire chief, an EMT, and a successful businessman. Chris was an award-winning pianist at the University of Illinois who went on to place in international competitions. And Kurt, who followed in his dad's footsteps, has announced, as you all know, throughout the country and is the only announcer ever at the renowned Keeneland Racecourse. He's done all that while working at the major thoroughbred and standardbred sales as a pedigree reader, on the NASCAR circuit, and at the Barrett-Jackson Auto Auctions. Carl Becker continues to be a major breeder through his Fair Meadow farm, maintaining 50 to 100 mares for decades. He has also always been an active participant in lobbying on behalf of the sport, having served as president and chairman of the board of the Illinois Standardbred Owners and Breeders Association, and as a member of the Illinois Harness Horsemen's Association Hall of Fame. Carl has called the Grand Circuit races at the Red Mile, Springfield, DuQuoin, and Indianapolis for decades. He's a man who called Niatros's, Maclobells, and Pine Chips world records, and Burgermeister's memorable Hamiltonian win. The list goes on and on. Horses coming from everywhere, just one of the many phrases he coined with his distinguished voice and enthusiasm. Carl would call the Hamiltonian in DuQuoin on Saturday and show up at the small Pana Tri-County Fair on Sunday with the same fervor. Carl just doesn't call a race, he describes it. He can introduce everyone in the winner's circle. He knows the dam of the winner. He can tell a story about the town that the parade marshal came from. He informs, and he's always entertained. He has and continues to read pedigrees at the highest level throughout the country, but 2 days after Lexington, he's liable to be in Kelowna, Iowa, displaying that same talent. I love the guy, even though he's an unabashed Republican and I consider myself a Democrat. At Harrisburg one year, he took me to see Sean Hannity at the Hilton. Luckily, I drink, Carl doesn't, and I was tipsy enough to survive that, and so has our friendship. Carl helped develop my passion for harness racing, and I know he has created passion in multitudes of others. It hasn't stopped even today for Carl, no longer needing to wait for the sires and dams or the yearbook to come out. We share very generous pathways and Standardbred Canada accounts, and the queries run out monthly with at least a week to go. I've talked to Carl a couple of times a week for over 40 years. I still remember how starstruck I was decades ago when he first introduced me to people like Stan Bergstein, Carl Allen, Phil Tully, John Cashman, and many others. His talent, dedication, loyalty, and hard work has been demonstrated throughout his lifetime of dedication to the sport. There's no doubt that Carl Becker is a true Hall of Famer.
Thank you, Ed. I'm just a touch disappointed. I wanted to be introduced in Swedish. Norwegian would have worked. Ed is able to say nothing in 7 different languages. Now, it has been a great trip, and as a kid, when I was 12, 13, 14, I did play-by-play softball for our local men's league. At that point, I knew I was the next Harry Carey of the St. Louis Baseball Cardinals. I had no doubt in my mind that I would be anywhere besides the announcer for the Cardinals. Well, I have not been invited to Cooperstown, but I have been invited to Goshen. And for all of you who made that possible, a sincere thank you. Ed mentioned the county fairs, which I do have a passion for. In fact, I did one Friday at Newton, Illinois at the Jasper County Fair. I've done 50 years plus. I've been going to the county fairs for 70 years plus. And Friday morning at Altamont, Illinois, the heat index was 105 to 110. So my wife, Bonnie, says, "You're going to a fair today?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "You realize what the heat index is?" I said, "No." She said, "Well, you know, I don't know why you keep doing that. You're not 25 anymore." Well, I knew that. She said, "Can't you get somebody else to go?" I said, "No." She said, "Why do you want to go?" I said, "Because I love the fairs and I like to watch the colts race." She said, "Well, I think you've got county fair derangement syndrome." Well, I don't know what that is, and I don't think I've got it. So I ignored her. Not to the point where you could tell that I was ignoring her, but I went to the fair, had a great day. Dirk Simpson, who's over here at our table, his father, Buddy, who's 88, won the 2-year-old trot that day. Dirk hails from Fairfield, home of a lot of great horsemen. His father, Buddy, in the Hall of Fame, so it made me feel good to see Buddy win at 88. Same country where Leo Burns raced all of those races, winning at 96. Remember that? New York Times, front page, story. Leo Burns, 96, winning at a county fair. Backing up to Ed's mention of Fair Meadow Farm, we began the farm in 1980. And at that point, struggling, not knowing for sure what we were doing, had a couple contact me. They said, "We're leaving the breeding operation down at Graham's. We're going to start a public stable. We've got 2 or 3 months. We could help you if you need help." I said, "Okay." So they came to work. Only problem was they had a kid with them, a boy, their son, who was a nuisance. Always in the way, you know, getting here, getting there, wanting to help with the horses, wanting to water them, wanting to drag the hay bales down the aisle. So we put up with it. Well, the couple was Pete and Donna Alanya. The kid was Tony Alanya. Then later, as Ed hinted, Marvin Miller contacted me, said, I think I can help you. So he came down. Every day he came to work at the farm. His son, Andy, who was 13 years old, trained horses at the fairgrounds adjacent to the farm. And little Andy would go work those horses, come over and help at the farm after he trained. And this went on for a couple of years. Irvin, man, I had confidence in you. I don't know where that story came from. I knew, the moment I saw Irvin, I knew this guy can do it. So I told Marvin, I said, get Irvin to train that thing. But seriously, I got to tell you one Irvin Miller story. Don't ever get in a mind game with this guy. About 12 years ago, I bought a filly, or a mare, at Chick's sale out at Harrington, Delaware. And I knew Irvin had trained her at one time when she was in Illinois. She should have paced in 57, 58, which was okay where she was going. But the people that took her for me couldn't get her to beat 212. She just loved 212. So I thought, oh, brother. So I ran into Irvin at the state fairgrounds. I said, Irvin, you won't remember this mare because you've had 400 at least since you've had her. Several Breeders' Crown winners, several Colt Stake champions at the top level. I said, her name is Mystical Smile, and I thought she might have an equipment card. So Irvin said, I don't need to look for an equipment card. Yeah, I said, I remember her real well. And he goes through this parody of what she wore, hobble length, the whole bit. And he said, oh, yeah, and tell your blacksmith to put used shoes on behind, because if you put new ones, she'll stick, and she's got to slide. And within 3 weeks, she'd won twice, including a win at the Illinois State Fair. So after that, I couldn't believe it. How could a guy, after all these horses, without looking at a piece of paper, without an equipment card, rattle off all of those figures? He did. So if Irvin was to take you on in a game that requires a lot of thinking, stay out. You will be second at the best. Later came the Tetriks. As you know, the Tetrik name is one of the most famous in harness racing. And these kids grew up, too, down in our area at Fairfield. The oldest of the Tetrik boys, Timmy, was a real promoter. So they would go to the county fairs, 4 of them in particular, and they would take their ponies. I think Timmy was 10, Trace probably 5 or 6. They brought in Jared Finn, who was about the age of Tim, and a couple of other little kids. So Timmy would come up and he would tell me, we're going to have a pony race after the last race. People want to see it. I mean, all go. And you've got to stay and announce it. Now that's why these guys aren't ever going to be jockeys. So, sure enough, they get those ponies lined up, and they'd come fogging down through there just really going. And we're talking about riding, not driving, riding. And they did that repeatedly until we got to the Jasper County Fair at Newton, same place I was Friday. So Tim comes up and he says, yeah, we got a girl that wants to ride. He said, she's Jared's cousin. I think her name was Sandy Finn. He said, we got to let her ride or she'll bawl all afternoon. So you know the rest of the story. They break from the start. Sandy gets back 2 lengths, but I see, looking ahead to the ground ahead of them, which you have to do when they come down the stretch like that. Here comes Sandy. One of those deals where now 5th, now 4th, now 3rd, now 2nd. I thought, why? It's Sandy. So that was the end of the pony races. Those guys didn't want to race ponies anymore because Sandy just whooped them. So later, I ran into, well, not ran into, I was doing the Winner's Circle interview at the Indiana State Fair. I'm sorry, it was at Indiana Downs. So Trace had just won a $200,000 race. And I said, Trace, you probably remember the pony races? Yeah. I said, remember the one in Newton? No. I said, remember when the girl beat you guys at Newton? Nope. Didn't remember a thing about it, nothing. With all those people listening, I thought this was a great story. I thought he'd say, yeah, we got beat. No, he didn't remember. So I talked to Tim about that down in Florida. He said, Trace never remembers a race he gets beat in. But it happened, and of course, they aren't raising ponies anymore. I'd like to mention, too, that we did have another young man that showed up at the Effingham County Fair one year, and he, after the races, which he had won a race that day, he said, I'd like to work for the Midwest Speed Sale Company. That was a company we had at Springfield. We sold horses in the goat barn, so you know about where that went. And I thought, wow, I can't take on a young guy like this. So later, this young guy turned out to be Bruce Brinkerhoff, who's one of the most recognized salespeople today in the country. So sometimes my judgment wasn't real clear on those young guys that came up and came through. They certainly did make life interesting. As Ed mentioned, the announcing, the Illinois State Fair, then came Indiana, then DuQuoin, then the Red Mile. For years, was a way to see all of those great horses, and I really, really got the best of the sport by being able to do that. Sales, some great sales stories out there. We've retold some of them tonight. One of the first guys I met when I came east to work a sale was Bob Bonney. He was with Pine Hollow Farm at Pine Bush, he and Morty Finder. I met him at the very onset of my sale experience. And I want to tell you, this man is so good for the business, such a great friend, and I really am proud to know Bob Bonney. Bob, where are you? There are a few bumps in the road. I've worked as the pedigree reader every single Ohio breeder sale that's ever been held. I almost couldn't make that statement. One year, we were selling at Scioto in the paddock, and it was a steamy, hot day. I mean, it was just sweltering. Made the day look like a wind chill came through. So there was no air moving that night in the paddock, and it was a very, very tough night. So here came this guy up from Sabra Farms, and he had turned in a statement about his yearling, a vet statement. So when that yearling came through, there were two vet statements. They were identical, except one was from Ohio State and one from the local vet. So due to the heat, Bart Glass had told us be sure to roll these things. Don't tarry, don't sell anybody short, but we can't spend a lot of time with this heat. So I read the statement from Ohio State, and I saw at that point, auctioneer started to sell, I saw a streak coming up from out in the crowd. I thought, uh-oh, that guy's headed my way. So here came this guy. He says, he said, there were two vet statements on that horse. I said, yeah. He said, well, you just read one. I said, well, we're supposed to move on. One was from Ohio State. I thought it might be more significant, so I read it. He said, look, I didn't pay vets to write statements for you to ignore them. And for the only time, I think, reading those pedigrees or announcing races, I lost it. It was so hot, sweat in my eyes. I said, look, if you know how to do this job that well, maybe you should come up here, and I need to go sit there where you're sitting. I thought, oh, man, Donald Trump, I know you're feeling, man. It was out. I couldn't get it back. I thought, oh, I wish I hadn't said that. So I saw this guy go make a direct beeline to Bart Glass, the sales general manager, and I thought, this isn't good. So I said to the auctioneer, who was that guy anyway from Sabra Farms? Well, he said, you'll be interested in knowing this Marvin Gross, who is a GM and CEO, owner of Sabra Farms. Oh, and he said, by the way, he's also the president of the Ohio Breeders, who we're selling for. I thought, oh, man, this gets worse. So that was near the end of the sale. And when that sale was over, I don't know what the record is in Ohio for the 100-meter dash, but I know I've got it done officially because I shot to his barn and came in the door apologizing. Marvin was leaned against the wall. He said, calm down. He said, young man, you're all right. He said, I went and talked to Mr. Glass. Yeah, I thought, I know that. That's why I'm here. And he said, he told me you were just doing your job. He wanted you to roll things as quickly as you could. So he said, we're all right. So you never know. But later, Marvin and I became good friends. When he dispersed his horses at Delaware, he asked Jerry Hawes if the old gray-haired guy could read some of the pedigrees. So that one worked out. They don't always. That one did. But I did learn a pretty good lesson there, and it hasn't happened since, unless it happens tonight. And I do appreciate the fact that those sales have been such an interesting situation. I worked for Stan Bergstein, who most of you know, one of the most intellectual men I've ever been around. Stan had a lot of stories. I don't know if you recall, but he used to be the roadman for the Globetrotters, so he had some real tales from those days. And he also told the story about the time that he went up to the Triborough Bridge, I think 14 lanes, and he said he got in one lane, got up there, the booth was closed. He got in another lane, worked his way through traffic, horns honking, people swearing. He said he finally found an open lane. Now, mind you, he did that Friday night show at Roosevelt. And he said when he got in this final lane and he got to the ticket booth, he said, I really unloaded on that toll taker. He said, I told him, tell the Port Authority to take this, tell the governor to take this, and tell your mayor. This guy listened. He said, okay, all right, Mr. Bergstein, I will. Stan said, 14 lanes. I picked the only one that's got a guy that ever heard of me, so, which was a little embarrassing to Stan. Then later in his career, and I wouldn't tell this story except I know it tickled Stan, we were selling Lana Lobel sale at Liberty Bell. And before, what's the one with the band, and we had noticeable young ladies carrying the drinks around. It was quite a production. So as I went up to start the sale, Stan had his hearing aid laid out. I thought, that's not a very good sign, is it? And he was pounding it. And anyway, he said, I said, I changed batteries, but he said, I've got a buzz in this thing. He said, I can't get it to straighten up. So we started the sale. About the third cold in was one of those that never quits nickering. So Stan said, who'll give 10,000? Colt nickered. He said, got it. Now 12.5. Colt nickered. Got it. Now 15. Colt nickered. Got it. He said, sold. And I saw Paul Z. Martin, the old bid spotter, who some of you might remember, doubled over. He's pounding his knees. He was laughing. Stan said, okay. He said, who's got the bid? Paul said, the horse. The horse has got the bid. He's had all three of them. He's the only bidder. So Stan said, ladies and gentlemen, we have an ineligible bidder on this animal, so we're going to start over. So there are a lot of sales stories, most of them good, and I appreciate and thank each of those sales companies that have hired me during the years. And I know that I don't want to leave anybody out, so hopefully that will not happen, but there have been so many. I know that Randy Mangus was here earlier. He and David Reed, of course, operate the Lexington Selected. My thanks to Murray and to Dr. Spears, to Dale, and to Jimmy. For the many years I did the standardbred horse sale at Harrisburg, one of the great experiences ever. The blooded horse sale at Delaware, Jerry and Billy Hawes, appreciate you. Also the Ohio sales, the Moss Barters from Midland Acres have been so good. And Dr. John, Jay, families, thank you. And to Alan Levitt with his Lana Lobel sales, his farm sales, and all of the others that he put on. Frank Chick, Harrington, Delaware. Patty Geyer up in Michigan. The Martins in Minnesota, fairly new sale. Tom Fallhaber from the Old Glory sale. And of course, earlier we mentioned Steve Cross from the Hoosier Classic Yearling sale. And Steve has been so good and so loyal and such a great friend. And he is one of the rising stars in this business. So on behalf of my family, thank you so much for this honor. As I said, I'll never forget it. I treasure it greatly. And I'll see you at the next county fair. If Bonnie lets me go.
I'd like to call now to the podium Gary Forster to introduce the 2018 Communicator Hall of Fame inductee, Dave Briggs.
Thank you, Roger. First off, on behalf of all the Canadians here today, I'd like to wish everyone a happy Canada Day. It's my pleasure to be here on the day that Dave Briggs is inducted into the Communicators Corner of the Hall of Fame. Dave's journey to this great honor began back in 1995 when he joined the Canadian Sportsman. Dave had come to me highly recommended by an instructor in the graduate journalism program at the University of Western Ontario in London, who at the time told me, there's something about this guy that just makes him stand out from everyone else in the class. And tonight, we realize once again, as we have many times over the years, how prophetic those words were. When I hired Dave, he had no previous exposure to horse racing other than the fact that his parents lived a couple blocks away from Windsor Raceway. While he may have been an unknown to sportsman readers at the time, it didn't take long for them to become very familiar with the name Dave Briggs. It was June 7th, 1995, when Dave's name first appeared in the Sportsman, with no less than 9 bylines in that issue. His first feature followed a couple of weeks later with the story on Linda and Lee DeVisser, the breeders and owners of one of Dave's favorite horses, Jenna's Beach Boy. Another landmark for Dave was in April of 2000 when he penned his initial Last Call column, which over the years became a must-read for everyone in the business, as Dave put forth his thoughts on the state of the industry and the many issues facing it, often providing a much-needed voice of reason. During his time as editor at The Sportsman, and continuing on now with Harness Racing Update, Dave has had the opportunity to work with many talented people, many of whom are here tonight. But there are 4 that I would like to acknowledge. There are the iconic photographic images by Dave Landry, who himself will be inducted into the Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame next month. And the sight of the 2 Daves has certainly been a common one at racetracks and farms everywhere over the years. Internationally recognized sports photographer Klaus Anderson was also a big part of Dave's sportsman family, as well as a team of outstanding writers, including Lauren Lee, herself a multiple award winner, who is also here tonight to share in Dave's induction. And the pictures and words all came together in eye-popping fashion by our graphic designer, Deanne Penny. Dave's body of work has long served as a benchmark for quality journalism in the racing industry. The 20-some awards, including 11 Hervé Awards won by Dave, stand as testament to Dave's unique ability to tell a compelling story through the written word. And that quality of product continues today at Harness Racing Update under Dave's leadership, and I have no doubt that the best of Dave's work is yet to come. Through all of this, Dave has remained a humble individual, a friend, a person held in high esteem by his peers, a great family man, and a man who has deep passion and love for harness racing, its people, and equine athletes. The voters could not have selected a better candidate to join the Communicators Corner of the Hall of Fame, and I congratulate Dave, his wife Laura, their children Moira, Liam, and Aaron on this tremendous accomplishment.
Thank you very much, Gary. He actually, this is going to be good news because it's hot, but Gary covered like about half of what I was going to say, so that's great. But I'll hit the highlights, which for me always begins and ends with my family. I'm extremely proud of them. They're all here tonight, so they made the journey from Canada to be here. So couldn't be happier. My amazing wife, Laura, and the 3 kids we've raised together. We have a common thing. I mean, they have. Teachers always say to us, your kids are very different. And, you know, they get one in a class and then the next one come along and they're all very different. They all have pieces of both of us. And I couldn't be prouder that Moira has picked up my love of writing and English and words. And Liam has picked up my love of sports and the Detroit Tigers. And that's going to kill the Ohio State people in here. But the Michigan Wolverines, how about a little bit about that? Go Blue. We don't get enough Michigan Wolverines anymore at these banquets, so I had to throw that in. And Aaron, who has a great passion for music and movies, and Bill Murray and these kind of things that I love. So they're a joy to be around all the time. I don't tell them I'm proud of them enough, and I'd like to do that tonight. So that you know, the other thing that Gary mentioned is the other family I have had is the Canadian Sportsman and now Harness Racing Update, but. Couldn't have worked with better, more talented people. And Gary gave us all the freedom, basically, to do it the way we saw best to do it. And that was a tremendous thing for a lot of young people. And, you know, this guy right here, he mentioned it, so I'll just do it quickly. I couldn't be happier that they're going to induct Dave Landry into the Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame this August. He makes everything I've ever done 10 times better. Because it's a package, and Deanne and these are great friends to this day, and for Lauren to make the trip down was a tremendously great surprise, so I want to thank Gary for making that happen. So, you know, Harness Racing Update is the second act. Thrilled with it and love it, and hope we can do better things with it and carry it on. You know, being Canadian is really important to me, but also the fact that there are very few Canadians in the Communicators Hall of Fame means a tremendous deal to me. I grew up in the shadow of Detroit, big fan of going there as a kid for everything, sports, concerts. You know, we were just there Thursday, as a matter of fact. We went to a Tigers game on Thursday, so feel sorry for me for that. And, you know, so I've always considered myself a little bit of a hybrid. So the United States has always been an important part of my life, and to be in this particular Communicators Hall of Fame means more than I can probably express properly here tonight. There's a few other people. I mean, there's been some stories told tonight that I think are interesting. Jules Siegel mentioned golfing with John Campbell. I've had the good fortune to do that and had a very similar result. I had a great opportunity to make one of the greatest golf shots of all time. Unfortunately, it was to hit a ball basically backwards into a giant piece of farm machinery for taking care of the golf course, and totally embarrassing myself in front of John. And basically, you know, he was, as John always is, tremendously good about that. The other name that came up from Carl is Stan Bergstein. Stan Bergstein meant a lot to me as well. I considered him one of my mentors along with Gary, and had the great privilege near the end of his life to get to know him a little bit better. And one of the great sad things but wonderful things for me was being asked to write his obituary. So that has always meant a tremendous amount to me, because I know, you know, his impact here, being the only person inducted in the Communicators Hall and the regular living now Immortal Hall of Fame. It is, you know, everybody knows the contribution Stan made to the sport, so that to have been taken a little bit under his wing meant a tremendous amount to me. So, you know, this is all pretty hard to process, but it's been a long, hot night. So if I left anybody out, I apologize, but thank you very, very, very much. It means so much to me.
9:32. That's a mighty good number, and you might bet it in the lottery tomorrow. 932. That's it for 2018. Mark it on the calendar right now. Next Hall of Fame Day here in Goshen, Sunday, July the 7th, 2019. Thanks for coming, and don't forget, July the 7th, 2019, be here!